Hi y'all, welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Ashley and this week we're making quiche. This is a super versatile recipe that you're going to want to make over and over again. Let's get started. All right, let's get started with a basic quiche crust. We'll start with all-purpose flour and a little bit of salt. And then using a pastry cutter, we're going to put in two different types of fat, a little bit of shortening and a little bit of unsalted butter. This is cold and it's cubed. And then we are going to cut in, just kind of doing a rocking motion, we're going to cut the fat into the flour until you have little sandy pebbles. Now, if you have a food processor, you can use that too, but since this makes such a small batch, I just usually like to either use my hands or a pastry cutter, or sometimes you can use 2 forks or 2 knives. All right, so you can see that the dough is sandy with a little bit of chunks of butter in there, and that will kind of explode when it's in the heat and make a really flaky pie crust, the butter and the flour together. So that's what you want it to look like. And then we're going to use really cold water, so ice cold water. You want to make sure this dough stays cold in order for the fat and the flour to work together to make a flaky pie crust. So I have just a little container of ice water, and I'm going to start with 4 tablespoons of the water. And then I'm going to stir it together to see if it will start to form a dough. And if the dough doesn't start to form, then I will add more ice water, up to 6 tablespoons. So you can see it's starting to form larger chunks. Sometimes you can just take the dough and squeeze it together. It's still a little crumbly, so I'll probably add 1 more tablespoon of ice water. All right, you can see it's starting to form a ball, so that means there's enough water. We'll just form a large ball and wrap it in plastic wrap. And then we will let it refrigerate for at least 30 minutes, up to 24 hours. And this will get it nice and cold again, because obviously my hands and the pastry cutter have caused a lot of heat. So we want to make sure it's really cold in order to use. So we will wrap this in plastic wrap and put it in the fridge. As I mentioned earlier, this is a really versatile recipe. I'm gonna walk us through making a quiche Lorraine because that's my favorite, but this is something that you can use really anything in your refrigerator to put together a quiche. Some of my other favorite combinations is Gruyere cheese and sausage. I like to do roasted vegetables, and sometimes I even do chorizo and a Monterey Jack cheese. Really, anything you have will work. All right, let's get started with first sauteing the bacon. And sauteing the bacon is going to give us some fat as the bacon cooks and renders, and that'll be what we use to saute our onions. Now, I'll start off with a cold pan and put the bacon in, and this helps the bacon render so you get some fat as the bacon cooks. Whereas if you put it in with a hot pan, it just really spends more time browning the bacon than getting some of the fat out. All right, our bacon is nice and crispy, and so we are going to drain it, or rather strain it, onto a paper towel lined plate. And then we're going to use some of the fat to saute the onion. So I only want to use about a tablespoon of the fat, so I'm just going to pour a little bit out and then we'll use what's left in the pan. And then let's put in the onions. And I like to saute the onions for my quiches because it gives a little bit of a caramelized onion taste rather than a raw onion taste. And these will just go until they start to turn a little translucent. All right, now that the onion is a little bit translucent, we're gonna go ahead and also strain it and lay it on the paper towel lined pan with the bacon. Now let's make the filling for our quiche. We'll begin with eggs, whisked, and then we will add some heavy cream, and a little bit of whole milk. Now this is the base for the quiche, so at this point you can customize all your ingredients from here on out. I'm gonna add the bacon and the onions that we just finished cooking. And then I'm going to add some Swiss cheese. And I like to grate it coarsely for this recipe so you can actually get a good chunk of it when you're eating the quiche. And then just a little bit of salt. It's about a half a teaspoon, and a little bit of pepper. It's to your liking, really. And this will be the quiche filling. The quiche has been in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes, so now it's time to roll it out. We'll start by flouring a work surface, unwrapping the dough, flouring the top of the dough and the rolling pin. We don't want this to stick to the surface at all. And let's start rolling out. So to do this, I do a little bit of rocking in the beginning just to loosen the dough up. But then we'll start from the center and roll out and rotate. Center, roll out, and rotate. And this process gets you more of an even circle. And I'm not known for my even pie crusts, but this certainly has helped me as I've been cooking for the past few years. Now, if the edges of your crust start to break, then you can kind of push them together, but if they break a lot, then the dough might be too cold to work with and you just need to let it sit for a minute or two. But this rolling out method is the same for quiches or pies or any kind of dough that you're using. You can do this roll turn method and then just kind of checking the temperature of the dough at the same time. So we're gonna roll it out until it is at 1/4 of an inch thick. Kind of looks like it's turning into a square. All right, I think we are at about 1/4 of an inch or a little bit less. And so here is a little trick. So you're going to take the rolling pin and use it to transfer the dough to the pie plate. So I take the dough and we are going to gently roll it around the rolling pin. And then we'll take your pie plate, and I like to use a deep dish pie plate usually for all my pies. And we'll roll it back down over the plate. And that way you're not lifting and transferring and causing holes and tears and that kind of thing. And then it's very easy to just move the dough around the plate if you need to adjust any of it. And then we'll just very carefully lay this crust, or this dough that will turn into a crust, into this pie plate. And you can see that there is a lot of overhang, and that's great. That's what we want, because I'm gonna show you a trick. So first I'm going to trim the dough until it's about 1 inch to 2 inches from the edge. So I'm just gonna trim this just a little bit. So I'm taking some kitchen shears, and again, I'm just going about 1 inch outside of the edge of the crust and cleaning it up a little bit. See, this is why you don't have to have a perfect circle or perfect edges, because this trick will clean it up for you. Okay, that's been trimmed. So here's the trick. We're going to tuck the dough under itself so it creates a smooth edge. So we're just tucking that dough underneath itself to the edge. So working quickly, because this dough is going to start heating up. You can kind of tell because it's falling down the sides a little bit. This is why we will refrigerate it again before it goes into the oven. But we're just folding this over. So see how it's much smoother now? Then you're going to take your finger and you're going to hug these two fingers around this. So like you're going to pinch your index finger on the left-hand side. I'm right-handed, so it works that way for me. And then you're just going to push the dough, pinch the dough all the way around, and that's what's going to give you your beautiful edge. So there we go. So now we're going to prick the dough with a fork, and that will keep it from rising when we pre-bake it. So we're just gonna do that all over. And this keeps it from getting too puffy when we pre-bake it. And the reason we pre-bake the crust is because it needs a little bit longer time to bake than the quiche filling does. So that'll be what it looks like. So now we're gonna place this in the refrigerator to chill a little bit because we've had our hands all over it, it's warmed up a little bit, and so it needs to chill. That way it stays nice and flaky when it cooks. So it's gonna go into the fridge for about 10 more minutes, then we'll take it out, put the quiche filling in, and we'll bake it up. All right, the quiche crust has finished its pre-bake. And we'll go ahead and pour the filling in. We'll give it a little stir to make sure the filling's evenly distributed. And then it'll go back in the oven for 30 more minutes. All right, the quiche is out of the oven and it looks so good. Let it cool for about 15 minutes and then you can slice it up and serve it. If you're making this ahead of time and keeping it in the refrigerator for meal prep and eating it throughout the week, just reheat it in the microwave at low power or put it in the oven until it's nice and warm. It's an awesome treat any morning of the week. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen today. If you liked today's episode, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. We post new content every week. I hope you find something on there that inspires you to cook for your friends and family around the table. Until next time, cook great food and we'll see you soon. Some of my favorites outside of Quiche Lorraine are sausage and Gruyere, roasted vegetables, and then I forgot the rest. Let's get started.